Paul, I'm curious, do you know step by step how you outline one of your books, or do you just do it naturally?
No, I have a process that I've worked on and developed over the course of my various books. So I start off with a basic description, which is usually a paragraph. I expand that and then break down the story into elements, being chapters, if you will. And I end up with what I call a short outline. So it's a little more sophisticated now because I've now written enough books. I know how long the book is going to be in a rough terms of page count. So I typically break it into acts. Each act would be a number of different chapters. So I know the first act is mainly setting things up. You find out what's going on in the world. You get a hint of where the story is going, but very often there's a surprise or something later in the story that's going to twist things, to make it a bit more interesting. Second act is all about ramping up the action. It doesn't have to be physical action. It could be political action or the personal stakes or something along those lines. And then third act would be the resolution or the ultimate showdown or whatever you want to call it, depending, of course, on the nature of the book itself.
And you actually sometimes don't follow that. You start the action right in the very first paragraph.
Yeah, so I like to try to get different beginnings to the books. I want all the books to follow a formula, and they really don't. The outlining process is similar, but the actual story, I try to make it different. That's most noticeable in the Heir to the Crown series, which is really all kinds of different stories. Some are political intrigue, some are military action adventures, some are more like an adventure, like a role-playing game. And the idea is they're all in the same world with the same group of characters, but there's various things that happen to them in their lives that make interesting stories.
And then sometimes you have to go back to your own outline in Act 2 and change the outline because of what happened in Act 1.
Sometimes. More commonly, it's not necessarily what happens in Act 1, but while I'm writing Act 1, I'll think of an interesting twist to add into the plot. And so that makes the outline, well, I wouldn't say it would make the outline useless, but it means I have to adapt the outline. Right now I finished the second act of Warrior Prince. I've had to go through the outline for Act 3 and change things up a bit because I've introduced new elements as I'm writing. So it's not 100% in the outline. Like, some of it is stuff that occurs to me as I'm writing, and some of it just comes out of the characters from their actions.
And when do you outline the next book in the series? And the reason I ask that is that you have 3 series on the go and you write 1 book in each series. So when you come back to it 9 months later, you've already done the outline, so it's easy to get back into it.
That varies. What I try to do, like right now, I have short outlines for the rest of all 3 of my major series. And I have a short outline for the next book in, let's see, short outline for the next book in the Heir to the Crown series. I have a long outline actually waiting for Cataclysm, which is the Frozen Flame. But before I start writing that, I'll sit down and I'll go over it, tweak it a bit, add in some new things I might have thought of, and just check to make sure that the flow is good, because it's got the overall story arc, and I want to make sure that I'm still thinking along the same lines because I wrote that some months ago.